and we're going to be showing you our new TRS rear disc brake kit for the Honda Ruckus 49cc motor. With this kit, it's going to be a complete kit. It's the first one out there. You're going to get your master cylinder. It's going to come with the banjo and the crush washers. You're going to get the straight banjo fitting. You can get the 90 banjo fitting here. You can get an Adelin caliper, 4-piston. You can get the stainless steel brake line. You can get the hardware, the caliper bracket, and you're also going to get the Adelin rotor with the billet hub adapter. And this is what you're going to bolt your wheel to. In this video, what we're going to do is we're going to go over all the parts, and we're going to show you how to install it onto your 49cc motor. Okay, so as you've seen in our Pulini Variator videos, you're going to take off these 7 bolts that hold your CVT case on. If you still have your Kickstarter, you're going to take that off along with the gear here, so you can have open access to your CVT. And what you're going to do is you're going to take your impact, and you're going to take off your clutch here, which is a 17mm. Next we're going to take off the drive face. It's still same thing, 17. Now we'll go ahead and slide the drive face off. Mother of God. Alright, for educational purposes, this is what happens when you use too much Loctite. It was almost like it was welded onto the crank here, but we got it off with a little bit of persuasion. So we'll get back to putting this brake kit in. Alright, so next up we're going to drain the oil out. It'll be this plug right here. This one is a 12mm. Just make sure you have like a cup or a bucket underneath it to catch the gear oil that's about to come out. So you can see this one had a lot of gear oil. Might be able to need another cup here. Alright. Also what you're going to do is you're going to take off, there's 7 bolts here. Let's see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and then these 2 here are 6 and 7. And what those are going to do, those are going to allow you to get to the other side of the case. But first what we're going to do is take off the wheel. Alright, so what we're going to do is we're going to take off these 4 bolts that are holding the wheel to the Kymco hub that's on here existing. I also want to let you know that the disc brake kit here is only for a 12x5 or a 12x8 wheel for your 49cc. It's not made for any of the 10 inches, even if it's a 10x8, nothing like that. It's only for the 12x8 or the 12x5s.
And as he's taking those off, sometimes you do have to take the dipstick out, depending on what kind of dipstick you have. And we're doing this on a modified because most likely that's who's going to be using the rear disc, the already modified Ruckus with a 12/8 fatty wheel on it. As you can see, we've actually put our bike on a stand. We have a piece of wood underneath here because you are going to have to get this wheel off the ground, and you can mount yours up however you feel you need to get that back wheel up. You can do it. So much fun watching you take bolts off. I'm so glad that guy requested that you take bolts off.
Especially when bolts like this are covered in Loctite. and about as long as the keys. It might be like those barber clips where people cut hair and people just watch because it's satisfying. I think it's just satisfying
Possibly.
to watch me loosen up bolts.
But don't say we don't give you guys what you asked for, because you wanted to see this kind of and you know who you are, YouTube guy.
Anyone else that doesn't care about this, fast forward another minute and a half. Alright. It's gonna be the last one.
Let's see if we can take this wheel out without, well, go ahead and try it.
So next up, we're going to take off and remove this axle nut. Alright, to remove this, you're going to need a 22 millimeter on your impact to take off this Kymco hub. Luckily, I have someone holding the rear brake for me, so it's going to keep the hub intact, and I'll go ahead and hit this off. Alright, so now that you have your axle bolt off, what I'm going to go ahead and do is the brake cable that comes underneath here to the brake arm, you have this nut. You're just going to want to spin it free so you open up the pads inside the hub here. And you're not going to be using this cable anymore, so you can go ahead and slide this out. There we go. Leave that to the side. And then we'll go ahead and slide off your Kymco hub. Okay, now that you have your hub off, you have your brake shoes here. You can go ahead and flip it up like this, and then your shoes are out of the way. Next, you're going to have your brake arm here, and you see there is a little bolt here, I believe is 6 millimeter, that's going to hold that in place, and we're going to go ahead and break that free. You're going to slide this out. You're going to have your brake arm assembly that fall in place here. Next up, we're going to go and take off those 7 bolts I told you about around the case here that are holding on the second half. Make sure you keep your bolts in order when you do take them out so you remember where they go. This is our last one here. Now in splitting the half here of the transmission, there is going to be some gear oil that came out. As you saw, that not a lot came out when we had opened up the fill station here. We're going to wobble the case. Now with the stock gasket, it might be a little thick, so you may use a small screwdriver to help pry it and work it open.
We're going to let it drain out here. So once it's drained back, we'll come back.
Alright, so now we're going to slide the half off here. And you want to be careful that the washer right there stays on there and that doesn't fall out or you lose it. And then you'll have another one that's going to be on the inside of the case there that goes around the smaller of the two gears like that. Alright, so in order for this kit to work, you are going to have to do a little bit of cutting and modifying because the 49cc isn't made for having a disc set up, and in order for this aftermarket part to work, you're going to have to do just a little bit of trimming. So you can see here on this one, we've already modified it. What you do is you're going to have to make a cut down right here on both sides, and then you're going to make a cut in. And it'll be good if you have a bandsaw. You can use it to make this. You can see it's going to be flush going across on both sides.
And then you're also going to have to do it just here, just a little bit, and you can use a Dremel tool for that. So here's the stock one.
It's a factory one, yeah. You can see it still has the ramps going up. It's still higher up right here where you have to Dremel in, and then it has this fitting right here that you're going to cut off.
You can also do this, it is aluminum, so you can do it with a hacksaw, but again, you're going to want to do it kind of flush here, all the way down, and the hacksaw here. So now we're going to go ahead and show you what we're going to do.
Alright, so now that we have the case off, what we went on and did is make sure that all the gear oil is out, and we went over with a nice fine, almost like a scrub. I'm trying to think of the name of it.
Scotch-Brite.
Scotch-Brite, there we go. Went over with the Scotch-Brite pad, make sure we clean up all the surfaces here. And then we're going to use this Ultra Black gasket maker. We're going to use this and go along all of the outside of here. And just always make sure that you put the gears in exactly how they came out. Remember, this big one has a big washer, and generally with the Getz they have this second washer that goes on right here.
Monster, how should I feel? Creatures lie here, looking through the Adrian? Monster, how should I feel? Creatures lie here, looking through the Monster, how should I feel? Creatures lie here, looking through
First name greatest, like a sprained ankle, boy, ain't nothing to play with. Started off local, but thanks to all the haters, I know G4 pilots on a first name basis. In your city.
Alright, now installing the sign, you just want to make sure that you can get this shaft here into the ball bearing, and also line up the two dowel pins on the case. It's going to make it a lot easier when you're installing this back in. There we go. So you can see it's sealed up nice and tight. And we're going to go ahead and put back in those 7 bolts that we had taken out.
Just make sure this spins freely. Should not bind at all. Should be pretty easy to spin. It's not going to spin as easy on this side because there's gears in here, but this should spin fairly easy.
Get them just a little tight and kind of go almost like a star pattern with it.
we have 2 more right here. Those are with the license plate frame. Okay, so you have your gear on, your new case. Remember, you shave this off a little bit. Take that off. This should have a through hole. And you're going to use that. We'll show you. And that should be solid here. We'll show you. Now it's time to get with the hub. Alright, next we're going to show you how to do the caliper bracket. It goes right in.
See, there's a groove like this that fits perfect right inside here. Slides right in place. You're going to take this long 10mm hex nut. You're going to slide it through the top hole like this. You're also going to get 2 nuts. You're going to thread both of these on before it makes it through the second hole here. So you got 1, and then I got all that gear oil on my hands. 2. What you're going to do is you're going to keep threading this bolt through like so. And you can get it hand tight for right now. I'm going to show you where the other smaller bolt here in the pack goes. And that's going to go inside here. We'll go ahead and tighten this one up with the socket wrench here.
You don't have to go too tight, just once it kind of bottoms out. Should be good right there.
Now back up here with the top one, this 10mm. What I'm going to do is I'm going to take an open-ended wrench. I'm going to go ahead and tighten this one up just a little bit more. Like so. And these nuts, I'm going to back and use as a backing nut for each part of the case here. And there you go. This nut is tight and in place. Next up, we're going to be going through installing the hub. Now these hubs already come pre-installed with the rotor attached. The rotor bolts are going to be snug in place, along with there's a little spacer on the inside between the hub and the rotor. It may be hard to see, it's kind of right in there. And what you're going to, we also include these washers. Right now we're going to use 2. They come with 3 in a kit depending on the wheel you have or the caliper used. We use with the Adelin one that we're sending in the pack right now. 2 seems to be working. So you're going to put these 2 right over the axle and push them in place behind here. The next what you're going to do is take the hub here with the rotor side facing in and slide it over the axle. I also want to note that because you just put that gasket sealer on there, you don't want to put any gear oil in here for at least a few hours so that the sealant can adhere to the case, and then you'll be able to put the gasket or the gear oil in without any leaking. Alright, next you're going to put your axle nut back on just like you did before. Make sure you're going to use red Loctite so this doesn't come off, and then you're going to hit it with the impact. We're going to spin that on right now, and then we'll finish it off with the impact. Alright, next up we're going to be taking the Adelan rotor that is included with the kit. You're also going to get these two M8 bolts along with the two washers. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and put the bolt through, put the washer on, and same thing on this side, bolt through, washer on. I'll flip it around here. I'm going to line it up right over the hub. And now notice that this should be centered with your rotor, and that's what we said with that spacing is. So with that, those two washers that we included in there pushes the hub and the rotor out just enough so that it's centered with this Adelan caliper. And I'm going to go ahead and tighten up these two bolts here. Now you also want to make sure that this is
not sticking past the hub. So if you take a look, I'll try to zoom in. The caliper does not stick past the hub. If it does, then you're going to need to add another spacer in. And what he's going to do is, he didn't put it in, but definitely put some red Loctite in here as well.
You know what? You're not going to cooperate? I'll do it my own way. Alright, now that you have the caliper attached, you're going to want to spin this. Just make sure it's not hitting anything on the case, to make sure you ground enough down and that it's not hitting anything with the caliper. And you can see I'm able to turn it by hand, and you can hear the gears in the case right now because it's still dry. But I'm able to turn it by hand freely like this.
Now it will hit the pads, and that's normal.
Once you bleed it, that's going to go away and take it for a little bit. Alright, in your kit, like I said, you're going to have these banjo fittings. You're going to have the banjo bolt and the fitting here. So what you're going to want to do is put one of the crush washers on the banjo bolt, and then this is going to go at an angle like this so it goes underneath and follows the path of the factory cable.
Now, there was a little red stopper in here, but we took it off.
Okay, I'm going to leave it a little loose so I can play around with the line, but it's going to be hand tight like that. But that's basically what you want for the angle, so that the line can go underneath the motor and up to the handlebars like the previous way. Next up, we're going to be removing your old brake line, so we can go ahead and run that new brake line up to the master cylinder. So what you're going to do is just unhook it from underneath here like we had showed you. Now that there's no nut or anything, you can go ahead and pull through the battery box. And it's going to slide from under your gas tank, or however you had it run. Alright, with this bike had the aftermarket Adelan rear drum brake lever, so we went ahead and removed that. Some people might still have the factory control for the left. If you do, you're still able to use it with this kit. All you're going to have to do is remove this Phillips head here. This is going to take the lever out, and then what you're going to do is you're going to take a you can take any type of saw. Let me get it organized here. You can make a cut like this, and then cut going down, and then you would cut off this bracket right here for the factory mirror. And you can go ahead and grind it down, polish it up. It'll clean up nice. You can powder coat it. But what that's going to do is allow you to have this, and then this aftermarket master cylinder will be able to now go on the outside of this and you'll be able to pull it closed with this tab shaved off and with this factory braking bracket shaved off.
Most likely though, if you're gonna have this rear brakes, you're probably gonna have an aftermarket switch like this guy has. So we're gonna show you what we're gonna do.
And we also, just want to throw in, we also have the Adelin lever separate for the left side if you want it for the disc, so you can have it matching if you already have an Adelin front disc. Alright, and with the lever provided, just a little 8mm, you can go ahead and loosen them up and tighten them on your handlebars here.
Well, this one already comes with a banjo bolt and crush washer.
And next what we're going to do is remove the battery box here and go ahead and put the other banjo fitting on and put it on the line, and then go ahead and run the line down through the frame to the back where we had already set up that banjo on the rotor. Alright, next up you're going to take the banjo that was already in the master cylinder here. You're going to put one of the crush washers on, go ahead and put the other 90 on, put the second crush washer, and go ahead and thread it back into the master cylinder.
So it's gonna look like this one.
Alright, we're going to get the line now. Go ahead and start running the line. I'm just going to open up the battery box first so we can have a little bit easier access with running the wire down. Alright, what we gotta then is put the brake line on. And we ran it down through the triple tree. It has those grooves, the little fittings there that you would run down just like you would for your standard brake line when you pull it out. And then we're just running it down. Usually you run it through the frame underneath the gas tank. This particular bike they ran around the outside, so it uses a little less slack, but you can go ahead and find out which way is the best means for you. We went ahead and run it back through a little bar here in the frame, all the way down, under, and then up to that fitting, and just on that angle, just like how we had it. Now, you may notice that you're going to have a little slack on here. Some of the factory CVTs have a little brake cable holder. If you by any chance got rid of it, we do have these brake cable holders here, and they're rubber coated, so it'll be alright with the line. And what it does is it goes in right here where the CVT is, and you can get a couple of them to really clean it up and line the line like that and go along the base of the CVT.
So next we're going to go ahead and put the wheel on and show you how it works.
Alright, before we put the wheel on, I just want to point out it would be a really good time now to bleed your brakes. Go ahead and fill up the master cylinder with brake fluid, and this is your bleeder right here. And usually we say it's a two-person job, especially with the rear, because you're going to need someone to crack this open while you're keeping the lever compressed up front when you're bleeding. One of the tricks that we learned is, along with tapping the line with a wrench and working your way up here on the master cylinder, to flick the lever like this, and it's going to get whatever bubbles. See how it vibrates the whole handlebars? It's going to get whatever bubbles up. And you could just keep flicking it like this, and you'll see more bubbles coming up in the master cylinder here. And you just want to keep filling it, pumping, having someone in the back drain it while you're keeping the lever compressed. And eventually you're going to start feeling that the brakes are getting tighter and tighter. And you'll be able to tell just by moving the hub here while whoever's helping you holds the brake lever, and it should lock up. What we're going to do now is install the wheel onto this hub and finish off the installation. Alright, now that we have our wheel on here in the back, I'm just going to go over everything that we've done here. We've installed the new hub with the rotor, the adapter, the caliper here, along with the brake line with the banjo fitting. Now you may notice that we run the line underneath, and we're using that brake cable holder like we told you about, and it's holding the line. And you also see that the line is a little bit different than what we had showed you in the previous seen, and that's because we just went over it with some wire loom to keep it black and match the theme of the bike. I just want to go over, this kit is made for if you have a one-piece wheel, so a one-piece 12x5 or a 12x8 for the 49cc. It will bolt right up, no issues, no extra modifying other than what you've seen in the video. If you do by chance have a two-piece wheel like this, the 12x8 or the 12x5 that we have, there will be a little bit extra modifying that you will have to do. With a wheel like this, behind the wheel where it connects to the hub, you're going to have to put 3 M8 washers to space this wheel further away, and I'll bring you on the other side of the wheel to show you why. Generally with these two-piece wheels, you can see here that usually has a acorn nut, and what you're going to have to do is take that M6x20 nut out, or M6x20 bolt out, put a smaller M6x16 bolt in, and then an open-ended nut like this. I'll have one in my hand here to show you a little bit better. Not a Nylock, but open-ended on both ends. And you're going to use a lot of Loctite, tighten it up on the wheel. Let that Loctite seat before you go ahead and take it for a ride. But with this, now it's going to clear from potentially hitting the caliper here. If you still have the acorn nuts on there, it's going to hit this with that two-piece wheel. Again, the one piece, it's going to clear just fine, no extra spacing added. But for the two piece, you're going to need that spacing along with changing up the bolts in the wheel. I'll just go through the front. And we switched the master cylinder as well to match the Adelin front disc brake. Alright, go ahead and spin it. You can see you cannot move it. It's going to stop you on a dime. I really appreciate you guys for all watching, sticking through with the video. I know it was a long one, but we had a lot to cover in this video. There's not anything like this in the market as a complete kit. And one other thing I do want to point out actually before we end this video is the dipstick here. With that two-piece wheel, you will also have to shave part of the dipstick reservoir so that it does not hit the tire. And you can see it right here. And if your dipstick is a factory one, you might have to still trim that as well. But right here you see we trimmed just a little bit with a Dremel, ground it down so that it doesn't hit the wheel and get caught up on the wheel and put another line in the tire. I appreciate you guys all watching. Be sure to stay tuned to our new videos. We have a lot more new products coming out for the new year. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe. Thanks again.